All right, y'all. Welcome. Yay. Thank you so much for coming out. My name is Burdine Johnson. I'm the founder and executive director of Torch Literary Arts. We publish and promote Black women writers. So you are here for our incredible Wildfire Reading Series featuring Andrea Vocab Sanderson. And we love being here with our good friends at Black Pearl Plugs. Thank you so much, Katrina, for having us back.
You're welcome.
We have been around since 2006. We are celebrating 18 years this year. I cannot believe that. Yes. Building up to our 20th anniversary in 2026. So I want to thank you all for being a part of this. You know, no support is too small or too large. Coming out and building community is what we want to be a part of, and centering Black women writers and their voices is our mission. A few announcements before we get started with tonight's reading. This program is made possible with support from the Austin Cultural Arts Division, the Burdine Johnson Foundation, the Poetry Foundation, the Austin Community Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Silence your cell phones if you have not already. And afterwards, we're going to have a conversation between myself and Andrea, and then some audience Q&A, and then we'll do book signing and a light reception. So thank you again for coming out. And now, without further ado, I will introduce tonight's feature. Andrea Vocab Sanderson is the 5th Poet Laureate Emeritus of San Antonio. Her performance style is a soulful fusion of spoken word, hip hop, and rhythm and blues. She's the author of She Tastes Like Music and is an Academy of American Poet Laureate Fellow. Vocab was voted Best Local Poet in 2021 and 2023 in San Antonio Current, and is the recipient of numerous awards including Dream Voice 2018, the Arts and Letters Award 2020, and Impact Award 2023. She enjoys facilitating creative writing workshops throughout the U.S. with her company, Tree of Life. She is an artist in residence specializing in artistic patient care with the nonprofit organization Hearts Need Art. Visit her website, AndreaVocabSanderson.com. Please help me welcome Andrea Vocab Sanderson. Greetings. You know, when we do our Q&A, we can go back to talking about food. Yeah. We had a whole Q&A already, I feel. It is such a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you for showing up for me. And for this wonderful establishment. It's so great. Congratulations on all your years of service to our community. Literacy is so important. Our voice is empowered through literacy. The more language we are familiar with, the more stories and narratives we take in, the more we have agency of our own voice. This is not a poem. All right, let me move along to the poetry. So I recently premiered my show called The Seasoned Woman in San Antonio. This is, yay, thank you very much. If you haven't been to San Antonio, we do have a Carver Theater in San Antonio as well. And it's on the east side of San Antonio, just like y'all have an east side Carver. It was a chitlin circuit back in the day for African Americans to come through. I did a show with a woman named Lubana Alcantar. She was the first voice of the Syrian opera, so our show was a mixture of opera music, Middle Eastern music, jazz, and all this wonderful stuff. But this is the opening piece to The Seasoned Woman. It's called Revolutions of Womanhood. It is memorized, but I'm going to use a safety net of the text. So this will slow me down, and I won't say it faster because I'll read it off the tablet. Solstice to equinox. We never cease. We rarely stop. Greening with youthfulness to ripened with age. Bittersweet nectar dripping onto the pages of life. We span and we spin, orbiting the sun in these layers of skin. Crystals of sea salt to coarsely ground peppercorn. Watch it wilt and be reborn, time and time again. Freshly plucked and pruned, the harvesting of crescent moons, the cutting of umbilical cord from the bellies of our personal galaxy. We recognize purging is as necessary a process as digging, planting, and watering. We realize that some woman, somewhere, is giving birth to something at all times. Our doulas prepare with cupped palms,
for the catching and midwife receiving. In sisterhood we readily await, present in heart and mind. Holding hands we press through the travail of a process to help her manifest it all. We build upon breath and stretch the body. Through the fall, winter, spring, and summer, a number of revolutions, a tumult of time tumbling, a progression of nightshades and berries on the vine. Amongst thorns and veiny growth, we flourish and wither as the seasons whisper, howl, and sing. What's that piece? Thank you. Let me get out of that text before I end up reading the whole show to you. All right, so I'm going to do a poem that I wrote a part two to, and I'll read you part two in a minute. This piece is called Ask the River. I am a singing poet. Sorry, I'm just going to apologize now. You're going to hear a lot of singing tonight.
Yes.
That's what I do. I didn't bring a musician with me, but you know, this piece, you can stream it though. So if you're curious as to how the music sounds, you can stream it. It is on my album, She Tastes Like Music, which is the companion to She Lives in Music. All my stuff, all my music you can stream on any music platform, from Spotify to Tidal to Amazon Music, whatever you listen to, wherever you stream.
That Grammy.
That would be great. Which we need to start campaigning for more in the future for this category of spoken word. You know, God bless Jay. He's won several times, but other people can win in this category, and we should campaign for it. I spoke to the river. I had so much to say, and I talked to the river. She answered me in waves. I once asked the water, do you recognize me? Why is this happening? All right, get your book, Andrea. Get your book. I am so sorry. I have a lot on my mind. Let me read it to you. Even though I have this poem, definitely have this poem memorized. It's like, Andrea, here's your brain. I will not start again. I'll just pick up where I left off. Page 60. I should know this by now. I've had this book long enough. All right, here we go. Start again. I once asked the water, do you recognize me, my whole body a river, frame that flows and ripples deep within, coursing to currents of beauty, liquid hearth, gurgling with inseparable droplets and always inviting. My entire habitat encompassing, salted or fresh, full and rushing with life, never dammed or receding, and certainly never stagnant. My movement, a fluid feminine rhythm, trickling or hasty through valleys and mountains I wind. I am no pond, yet at times I resemble an ocean. I once asked the water, do you recognize me? I sat still, waited for an answer. All I saw was my reflection in the flux and waves, in the flux and waves. So I spoke to the river. I had so much to say, and I talked to the river. She answered me in waves. In waves. Part two. This one has a little bit of response, so y'all gonna sing with me in just a moment. I'll point to you when we get there. Yes, me. Clear it out, y'all. Clear it out. All them, Rice Krispie treats. Clear it out. If you ask the water, it will answer in the flow. Said if you talk to the water, guaranteed to let you know. I said if you ask the water, answers rushing to your soul. So just ask the question, it will answer in the flow. That's your part. Somebody say answer in the flow.
Answer in the flow.
Say answer in the flow.
Answer in the flow.
Said answer in the flow.
Answer in the flow.
Guaranteed to let you know. And if you ask this body to salt itself, to travel the path less taken, snake and wind around the land, filling pockets to filter through finely, to speak of itself a unique design, to hold the form or fork and divide, it will. It will do so with ease before it can rest. Until then, it will rush, never hushed, always babbling, babbling, open wide to hydrating civilizations, quenching their thirst. If you ask of this body to breach the canal, it will. To levy the threshold and break free with new life. To be unabridged, boundless, courageous, divine, to be elevated, chosen, growing and inclined, it will indeed. If you ask of it to offer libations or liberation, it will. To be rippled or serene, to be fulfilled, to ebb and flow, it will come and go and go and go. Ask anything, it's up for the task. So bask in this acceptance, rest in the knowing. The water is one of testament and overflowing with reverence. Open with deep-seated rapport, giving report to our ultimate source, the water. One of cleansing and ceremony, one of calm or clamoring. It is celebration leading to the continuation of sustainable life. If you ask of its abilities, it will not fail to deliver and respond with regards to its true nature. For steaming, for floating up, for frozen or frothing at the banks and shore, misting to pour, to lift, to fall, to rain, to drip. So come and dip your toes in below the surface. Sink your silhouette in the wetness and wander in until your waist is submersed and immersed. That's not a word. Submerged and immersed. It will never be a waste of time to come and inquire. If you should happen to ask, please reacquaint yourself with the answer and the reason for your quandary, and it will answer in the flow. It will answer in the flow. I said it'll answer in the flow. Guaranteed to let you know that Smaller crowds make me nervous. Like big crowds, I'm not nervous, but I'm like, I can see all of your faces. You're looking at me. Right. I don't want to get, you don't want to see that.
Sending you love, sending you energy.
Thank you. Y'all are here with me. And I appreciate all of the with me that you are. So, I was born in 1981. I seasoned now. And one of my favorite musicians, composers, lyricists is a good man. This piece is entitled Electric Rain, and as I perform this poem for you, as I read it to you, you will see who it's about. Never meant to cause you any sorrow. Let's just do it. Never meant to cause you any pain. Just one time to see you laughing. I only want to see you dancing in that purple rain, purple rain, purple rain. Purple rain, purple rain, splash. Purple rain, purple rain. You can hear the music in your head, yes you can. I only want to see you dancing in that purple rain. Electric heat poured out in pandemonium at full capacity. A high octave trill tolls over a stadium standing in adoration. The artist salaciously licks his guitar strings with tantric fingers and tongue, teasing the room till hypnosis occurs. A low, feline purr follows as slender hips swivel with the magnetic pulse of the band. His petite body becomes a paintbrush. He thrusts wet bristles onto the canvas, a feverish stroke that slathers the soul in tertiary color. We all become a part of the masterpiece he is creating. Nothing escapes his touch. Nothing escapes his gaze. His voice navigates the air like a ship in calm waters. And we are drowning in the leagues of his deep, immersed in a satisfaction so sensual. We are billowing timeless lyrics that transport us out of body, intergalactic, each note a dove released in a chorus that surrounds us. The energy of connection penetrates the atmosphere, and we are tuned just like his guitar. We hum this lavish vibration, being swept away into surreal feelings. Living in the moment, because we've been seduced into surrender. We want the seduction of this symphonic rapture. We climb the walls for you. You give us every genre. You quench our thirst with a crushed velvet, mysterious caress. You tuck passion underneath our skin and we perspire it. We let go with you because you channel freedom into the chords of your music. We are your beautiful ones, adorned with your purple rain royalty, sweet prince. Yes. I think I'll do 2 more and then we can talk. And if y'all want more, it's always better to do less and people being like, thank God you stopped. Then keep going and people are like, ooh, is she gonna finish? Jesus.
Love it.
Thank you so much. I think I'll do Simply Me. Yeah. More singing. Here we go. This is so amazing. I feel so amazing. God made you amazing. Simply me. So amazing. We are so amazing. So amazing, simply me. Woke up to an epiphany of who I've become. The embodiment of my experiences coupled with temperance emanated into this song. I know right where I belong. Tucked underneath my skin is the perfect blend of grace, wisdom, and certainty. My affirmations match my expectations. My whole body is an anthem. My heartbeat keeps the drum and it's so amazing. I feel so amazing. So amazing. Simply me. So amazing. God made you amazing. So amazing, simply me. Feeling lush virtuosity and it's amazing. The blend of fabric woven meticulously, I see the good in me. Natural beauty internally, it flows through fluidly like fine linens of self-love. esteeming my heart in high regards, looking above fault lines. No more earthquakes of criticism and critique. I will not weigh myself against others because I am unique and it's amazing. That is my affirmation. It is a love poem to all of us.
Yes.
Life be hard. I'm not gonna say it's hard. Life be hard.
Yes.
It is constantly on the be of hard. And you know, we gotta love ourselves and remind ourselves that we are amazing, because sometimes we forget. I'm gonna read y'all one more poem, and I want to read it instead of performing. I haven't performed it in a while. I'll probably end up performing it as I talk through it, but I feel like it'll start off as a read. Speaking of, you know, we are all people of color up in here, and we definitely need to be reminded as people of color that we are beautiful. This is just going to piggyback on the poem I just did, but I wrote this one for my sister, who is a very brown-skinned woman, and the world has been hard. The world has been hard and harsh, and so I wrote this. This is taken from the text of Song of Solomon. He is black but comely, and this is taken from that. So I also sang this song when I was in high school. It was a choir song that I sang when I just kind of riffed off of it. I like to riff off of songs. Obviously, I live in music.
Yes.
Nigra sum, ser formosa. I am that opal-colored onyx stone, black bone soul Jones in the midnight dreary. My soul is a weary kind of blues, and you know me for my ebony hues. Nigra sum, like Solomon the wisest king, with a pigment from the descendant of a chocolate crescent beam. I am the depth of Africa's dream. Do you see me gleam? Shining a fluid monsoon. Nigra sum, I am. Bellowing coal, smoky soul, both young and old, just depending on the century you first got a glimpse of me. The obscured regions of the earth were told of my destiny. I grew from the continent of mahogany in full bloom. Nigra sum, just mention me to Cairo sands, echoing the song of the motherland, walking hand in hand with pharaohs and Abraham. I stood by Cush and pushed the seeds of Noah in the land, watered them with the words from my lips. I am the darkness of every solar eclipse from January until June. Nigra sum, you presume to know my fable. Sit with me at the Passover table. See, I was able to break bread with thee in Lebanon. I kissed the Lamb of Heaven just before he was betrayed in Gethsemane that day. And when the sky turned pitch from gray, I was the one that sprayed the firmament with my tears. It was the color of fears and doom. Nigra sum, like the daughters of Jerusalem, gathering to be brides and concubines, veiling brown eyes for the wise one. He was scorched by the sun, double-coated in sable with prose, sweeter than molasses and maple. I too am hewn just like their groom. Nigra sum, like the inside of tombs, like iron and fumes, like licorice perfume, like the bottom of a lagoon. I am black but comely. Nigra sum, my skin is baked and burnt, melanin burst with the ink of my pen. I am in the abyss of every woman, waiting to be birthed as light from her womb. From the den of each uterus I am exhumed, consumed in the richness of raven shades. Vamp clay made the frame of my being. I am the blanket overseeing the night as it dances across the expanses of the hemispheres. It is clear that I too have been touched by the sun so much that I could absorb the very breath of the moon. Nigra sum, for we must learn to love the skin that our God put us in, even when the world would condition us to hate it, to negate it, to berate it. Don't you dare hate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Another round of applause for Andrea. Oh my God, thank you so much. That was fantastic. So I just have a few questions. I'm gonna limit myself because I could go on and then this become a whole nother thing. Maybe it'll be a podcast. We'll start with
You should, because you're great at talking. You're great at it.
But I mean, it is evident your talent as a lyricist, as a poet. You know, it's perfect that we have you here featuring in May between Poetry Month and Black Music Month in June. This should be Vocab Month, right? So maybe you could share a little bit about, you know, how you first started singing and sharing your work musically, and maybe which came first, poetry or was it the music in you?
Well, it's don't stop now, you got the music in you. Yeah, that happens. All right, let me slow up. So my father is a DJ.
Okay.
DJ Daddy Old School. You can address him as such, or he's Arthur, whatever.
Does he still DJ?
He does. Daddy still, bar mitzvahs, weddings, divorce parties, whatever you got. And he's cheaper than most DJs.
All right,
so
Daddy.
he raised me in a household full of milk crates of music, so I grew up with music. But I don't know, I just know at the age of 6, I had decided I wanted to be in choir at church. And at the age of 6, I also started writing poetry. My earliest memory was getting on my aunt's typewriter and typing my mother a poem about how much I loved her. And I decided she needed to read it as we were driving from Corpus Christi to San Antonio. And so I handed her the poem and I was like, read it! And she's like, I don't drive it. I was 6. And in my mind, I was like, you're going to read it now.
It was urgent.
It was urgent. It needed to happen at that exact moment. But I've been writing ever since then. At the age of 13, I had a friend that was murdered. And I read a poem at her memorial service, and I saw how people responded. That was my first time ever reading publicly. And I saw how people responded, the therapeutic moment of it, the healing. And I was like, I'm going to start doing this all the time, for myself, for others. So I tried to write for people who I felt were voiceless. And yeah, that's what I do. I try to write. And, you know, and now I'm having great conversations with people as I speak to them and try to empower communities with poetry workshops. So people take their own voice, agency over their own voice, and they speak for themselves.
How would you recommend someone start, especially seeing such a talent as yours? Like, immediately, like, when you said you're going to sing with me, I felt people tense up. I did. Because they're like, she was me to sing. You know, so it's like getting past that hump to recognizing your voice as it is, just as that last poem you shared. You are in the skin that you were supposed to be in. You were put here with these talents. How would you recommend somebody start on their path of writing and or singing?
Yeah, well, I think everything starts with listening. Find the people that inspire you and let them inspire you. Live life so that you have a story to tell. Because some people always talk to me, I have writer's block. I'm like, hey, you need to live more. Go out and do things. That way you get unblocked. And when you listen to people, if they're great at what they do, it'll make you want to pick up your pen. It's been happening since the dawn of time, I think. So I say listen first. If you don't know exactly what to talk about, do a response piece to someone who inspires you, or remix somebody's stuff.
What is that? What's a response piece?
So I think it can happen a couple of different ways. One is borrow a line from their work, always cite them, of course. And
cite your source.
Yeah, cite your source. And then, you know, expound on what they said, elaborate off of what they said. I have a poem that was inspired by Talib Kweli, a line in one of his songs, and I just riffed off that line for like the whole poem. But there's so many ways that's how you start, I think. And then you'll step out of channeling through other people's voices into just completely honing your own. But, you know, I think that's always a good place to start with a remix poem. Another way to do that is just straight up just responding to what they say, and or writing in the style of someone that you admire. You know, form and style. You can use these things if you want, or you can break form, tradition, and style. But it's important, I think, to know some of the rules of poetry before you decide to break them. And so study a little bit, read a little bit. Actually, read a lot, and then, you know, put everything down and just sit with your own self, and you'll start to craft, I think. And also go to workshops.
Yes, yeah, and a quick plug, Torch Literary Arts does provide workshops for BIPOC and non-binary writers, so check out Torch to sign up for our free workshops. But absolutely, I feel the same thing. I got an MFA so that I could not do half of the things that they taught me to do. But in learning the craft, right, and learning those technical, traditional skills, that then gave me the freedom to be able to really know, right, I understand this, and this is why my voice is different.
Exactly.
Right, and there's so much power in that recognition, right? And it also just, you know, say like you standing on business with your poetry, right? It's like I know this is my craft, and that's why I am a master of this work, to be able to break the master's tools. Right?
Absolutely, and by master we do mean the colonized mouth, the colonized pen, because I feel like some of these forms, when people try to demand or don't respect you because you're not in academia or because you don't follow form, it's racism. And there are plenty of amazing writers of color who have created their own forms. So I say celebrate. If you don't want to, go with the colonized forms, quote unquote, then follow Black people who have created forms of their own.
Have you created a form?
I don't know that I have. I don't know. I just like to rhyme a lot. That's what I do.
No, I'm fully on board with you. I created a form. My form, the Genesis, is out there in the world, and people pick it up and write it. And I have had folks talk about that before and ask, like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know you could do that. You couldn't." It's like, yes, you can make your own forms today. Today, don't wait, and that we have that power in us.
Absolutely.
Because everything that came before was just somebody else created that, and then it's those racist historical systems, that have decided whose voices and whose forms were the most relevant and most important, right? And I mean, you can go back and look at like McCarthy era and the beatniks at that time as why, like, oh, what they were doing was wrong. That was all political more than anything. That was political. That had very little to do about poetry. And then the tradition of Black folks in oral history and griots, like that goes back thousands of years. And there was no class for that. That was passed down. That was taught to you from ancestral memory, ancestral work. Your grandparents taught you this and so forth. I just saw recently a sister tell her story. She had this song that she would sing, that her grandmother sang to her, and there were some linguists that were able to track back to the tribe that she was from in Africa, because that song was unique to that specific tribe. So to think that poetry lasted through from her ancestral home in Africa, in this tribe, all the way to present. I think this was fairly recent when this was done, through that song and sharing of that poetry. What MFA you need for that? Wait, who's gonna come and tell you that's not valid, right? So I'm very vocal about that. I'm passionate about that, and I'm vocal about that, because what it does is it gatekeeps. Right. And I'm not going to be part of the gatekeeping systems that have kept us locked out for so long. So as soon as I'm in the gates stay open. Right. We got to keep that thing down. So speaking of, getting in rooms and doing different things, I also want to commend you on being that poet laureate of San Antonio. Oh my gosh.
During the most trying time in our history of recent.
Yes, during the pandemic, during that time. Talk a little bit about what it was like to step into that role and build community through poetry during the pandemic.
Okay, so I want to do this in like 2 minutes or less. What time is it? Because it's a lot to say. Okay, so we'll just say at 8 o'clock. Somebody stop me at 8 o'clock. All right, so it was crisis response. I was told in March of 2020, which is the exact time of the shutdown. And I was about to go to Europe and work over there and tour over there with a young lady. One of the pieces I did, Simply Me, which was on the STAR test last year for 9th graders in the state of Texas. I was going to go over to Europe because I wrote that piece for her album, and it's a title track of her album, Simply Me. So it's on my album and it's also on her album. And I was getting ready to go and move and be free about the cabin. And then COVID-19 was like, sit down. And so I started a hashtag challenge, which I talk about all this in my TED Talk. I have a TED Talk that is on that I did through Palo Alto College in San Antonio, and about empowering our voices. So I started a hashtag challenge. From there, I started working with Texas Public Radio. I hosted some of their series they did on racial reckoning. It was during the time of George Floyd. Black Lives Matter had surged up, and so we were dealing with COVID plus George Floyd plus a Trump presidency, and I was, or the insurrection of Capitol, right? All this stuff was happening, and I was trying to just give people hope and inspire, and then also trying to deal with my own things, which I feel like I didn't even get to process the hurt of that until Derek Chauvin was sentenced. I think that was like the first time I was like, one of the first times, it wasn't the first time, but it was one of the first times where I was like, I'm going to break down and cry in public like about this, because it was just so heavy on me. Because I was like, how do we inspire people to speak truths when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when there are so many I don't knows? And that's all we had was a bunch of unknowns, and people were trying to tell us through social media, through the news, what our reality was, but I'm like, that's not our reality, and we have to speak for ourselves. And so it was a lot of initiatives that I created, helping nonprofits, grassroots organizations, helping them with supplies, helping people to write and doing online readings until we were able to go back out. I would show up to a place and there would be a camera crew in the audience, and I would be performing into a camera, into the void. And then, people started coming back out, but I stayed busy. I had 3 years instead of 2. Thank God for they gave me an extra year to do, and it was life changing.
No, that time, I mean, I realized after, when you're in the middle of a traumatic experience, it's hard to understand and process everything that's happening. But now, like looking back at that time frame, that 2020 through 2023, really, was so much numbness. And I hate that, because that was always my thing. They say, don't be numb, don't look away. But there was so much happening and so much loss that personally, people passed away.
Lots of people.
Millions of people died during COVID, and we're supposed to just like speed bump that and get back into the groove. But then there was also something really powerful that was happening artistically for me during that time. I started creating visual art. I was writing still, and reading and listening a lot, sitting still and listening and reading a lot. But how the art was calling itself up to be shared was different. Did you feel any changes or shifts in your artistry during that time?
Absolutely. I mean, I did. So one of the things I did a street mural. When people were writing or painting Black Lives Matter on the ground, I painted one of my poems around a park that you could see from the aerial view. I had 13 words, and I used those 13 words as wisely as I could. And the poem says, "Jubilant and exuberant is the melanin of our skin. From despair, we have arisen." Thank you.
Yes.
That was the poem. Instead of saying Black Lives Matter, that was my way of saying Black Lives Matter. And some of the people in San Antonio were so pissed about the fact that we went outside in the middle of the night in August and painted the ground with that. And I was like, but I didn't say anything about any specific race of people. Unless you are an albino person, you have melanin in your skin. Unless you have some kind of melanin deficiency. So I'm talking to anybody with melanin in their skin. We have arisen from whatever we have been oppressed with.
But also we can say black.
Right, we can.
Like we can say black. And for me, that's a part that has always been a real intentional part of my practice, is to not dilute our blackness by not saying black. I understand, however the artist is, nothing against how you did this beautiful poem and painted on the street. But that part, for me, like, especially doing this work with Torch, I would have people come up to me and say, oh, but you mean this is for PLC, you mean this is for BIPOC. No, we center Black women. And then in doing that, we are able to make and hold space for everyone. This is what they say, you know, what a rising tide lifts all boats. Black women do for everyone in the world. Black women is the original woman. Black women are everywhere. When I say black women, I'm not minimizing it. I'm expanding it to the whole world, right? So that's just when we're sitting there in the face of black people being murdered, and then I'm supposed to feel a way about saying black. That is like insane. That's part of the definition of insanity to me. You're trying to make me crazy. You know, so
I do want to speak to that because I do agree we should be able to say, you know, piggyback on James Brown, say it loud.
I'm black and I'm proud.
Exactly that. I live in a city that is 60% Hispanic and Latino, and so I wanted it to be a love letter because I feel like the first time where I really realized colorism touched not just African Americans or black people was I was in middle school and I had a Latina friend. She was a Mexican girl and she was brown skin. She was almost as dark as me, and she had this compact of too light powder, and she was putting it on and she was like, I'm so dark. She was just like upset and putting this way too light powder on herself, and I had the epiphany. I was like, I didn't know that Mexican people went through that. When you realize the subjugation of people, or oppression of people, or colorism exists outside of. And so when I pinned that, I was thinking about that, and it was crazy because Latina women responded to my poem. They wrote response poems to that painting of the street. So I did that in 2020, and I did an album a year later called The Elevated EP, which was a 1-year celebration of doing that mural in the street. And since then, I've done more public art. So to answer your question, I got into public art and I got into videography work. I have something called the Breathe series that I did in response to COVID, in response to Trump election, and all that thing. And it's for every letter of the word breathe, there's a poem and a visual piece. So there's a video vignette for all of these letters. The E is for Elijah Wood, the young violin player that was neurodivergent, that was murdered in Aurora, Colorado. And so each letter is a different thing. And I worked with a flamenco artist. The last E is called Elysium, and it's for the healthcare workers that died battling COVID-19 as they were trying to heal other people. And so this whole season, trying to reflect on different things that we face as a nation. And as we battle through all this stuff.
So I have one last question, then I'll open it up for other questions. But Vivi Francis, incredible poet, was here with us during the Texas Book Festival last year, and I asked the question about how is joy present in her life, and she said something that stuck with me. She said joy, that she had not lived a life that often afforded joy, but having parity, so that we could, was the real action to have parity, so that we have equal space for the possibility of joy to happen. And yes, I mean that really stuck with me. So my last question is, how do you create space for the possibility of joy?
I think celebrating others, finding ways to celebrate others, and when somebody releases a book, and it can be as simple as taking a picture with them, holding their book, talking about them to others, whether it be on social media or in person, building anticipation for other people, mentoring young adults through their works, going to people and saying, hey, I'd like to write a poem for you, and not before you can even be commissioned, to find ways to celebrate people in that manner. For instance, we have an African American archive museum in San Antonio when they opened their brick and mortar in a smaller space. Now they're moving into a multi-million-dollar space, but when they opened in their smaller space, I went to them and I was like, I want to write a poem, give me history of African Americans in San Antonio, and I did a video for that. That was another thing that I did during the pandemic, and realizing as a poet laureate, I was a poet laureate for all people. Yes, I'm going to service the African American community hardcore, but I know that other
No,
communities.
laureate, you are there for
Yeah,
all people through the service of poetry. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that being a laureate really taught me that it's like, how do I, number one, ask people what voids need to be filled? How can I represent you in space with your permission? Because you gotta ask people permission before you go talking for them. And I think that's what other people get themselves into trouble for, when they just assume they know.
Yes.
Before and then they just go speak.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's how I make room for joy is through great conversations with people, celebrating them, representing. Yeah.
I like that answer. Thank you. We should all use Clifton so that we celebrate others more than we seek to be celebrated. For me, that joy and celebration comes in service. I am not happy when I am not in service, and I'm so grateful to be in service towards this community and to you joining us today. Thank you so much. Questions from the audience? Does anyone have any questions? I could keep talking, but we're gonna get you some because we're gonna sell some books too, besides the books.
Yes.
I have a question. Like you said, most of it's through song. Is it like the rhythm of the song that keeps you intrigued in poetry, or is it like just being able to flow with it?
I've always been fascinated with words, so the rhythm of the way words sound coming out, but then the definition of words. When I was little, I used to just read the dictionary. I'm sure you did too, because I feel like when you have a vast lexicon, nobody can deny you. I mean, think about it. They tried to use it as a weapon against President Obama. He's a great orator. He's good at speaking. I'm like, is that an insult? Because this man can speak well? And they try to demonize people when, because they're like, they're threatened by it and intimidated by it when folks have agency over their voice and understand language enough to be able to speak. And then I live in a city that's very bilingual. And even some in ways multilingual, because we have a big indigenous community. And so I love celebrating voice in all the different languages that we can speak in and being invited into that space. I love the shape of words, how they sound, all of those things play into it. Yeah.
Being from and being in San Antonio, you were raised there, right?
Yes, born and raised.
How is that concept? Because when I think of San Antonio, all I think of is the joy of Spanish.
Right.
And I've heard people that have been there and they're like, where are the people? Like,
We're
where are the black people?
Right.
Where are the black
We're
people?
7% black. That's it.
So it's like, how do you find it?
Same as Austin.
Right. Well, they're definitely a church. They are at buffet restaurants. When we have the biggest MLK march in the nation.
Wow.
So in January you can find black people. We have Dream Week now, which has been going on for like a decade, which is a celebration of MLK Jr. that lasts for like about 2 weeks. There's hundreds and hundreds of events. And the black man that started that, he's Nigerian. His name is Sho, and he came to he came to San Antonio and started Dream Week, and we have hundreds of events, like I said. So you can see us definitely in January. You can see us during Black History Month doing stuff. A lot of San Antonio we're called Military City USA. So a lot of black people that come to San Antonio are transplants, and they choose to stay, a lot of them, and build family and community here in San Antonio. And so, the military bases house a lot of us. And yeah, I feel like spiritual places, like I said, and we have big jazz festival things that happen, and that's another time you can see black people. But I try to be a culture bearer in San Antonio so I can draw out black people to come and do things. And then I try to tell black people, hey, there's grant funding for the things you want to do, but you need to get connected to the city, get on the city's website, search out the grants that all these other people that are not black are taking that money and getting and doing things. Because so many people think that because most of the things in San Antonio have a Spanish word in their title. A lot of black people think, oh, it's not for me because the title is Mexican, the title is Hispanic, the title is whatever. So they might not come. And I've always been a token black that's a part of, they see me on the flyer, but I try to get them to come. I'm like, come into these spaces, come and do these things so that this is for you too, but you find ways to celebrate it.
Take up space,
Right.
and that you belong in many spaces. You belong in all the spaces. I always say that any room that I'm in, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm in
She said what she said.
Any other questions?
First off, thank you so much. Your artistry is absolutely amazing. It's a pleasure to experience. One of your poems, you were using your lyrics to have all of us kind of join in. How important is like the community in your art?
When I work with young adults a lot, I like to do call and response stuff because it invigorates folks to, like that's that real time you can respond back to me. And I wrote that poem right before I got on stage one day. And it was like spur of the moment to have people do call and response. And I was like, I like this. I saw the joy that it came into people's faces, smile. And I was like, I need to write more call and response things. And because I'm definitely thinking about community when I create the work that I write. And I think of one piece, I may use certain language to tie it to another piece, and I would choose to do several of those poems in the same set so that people can feel the connection from one piece to the next. And I want people to feel like they're invited into my words because I'm trying to touch hearts and souls because I know we all going through something. It's like I said in my first poem, somewhere in the world at all times a woman is giving birth to something, but not just women, human beings, we are manifesting and giving birth to whatever's inside of us, whether it be pain, joy, grief, struggle, sorrow, comedy. We're giving birth to these things, and we all need a support group. And I think that's why people go to poetry readings, go to comedy clubs, go to jazz clubs, because they're looking to connect, and art is a vessel for connecting.
That's why so much of that was huge also during the lockdown. I would say if I could write a dissertation for real just on how the arts continue to save us. Like during the lockdown, we were all online, signing up to watch comedy shows, listening to D9 Spin. Who all was at the D9 parties, right? So many poetry readings, so many birthday parties, just anything to connect. But then there was always an artistic component to it. There was music, there were films, there was Netflix. Oh my God, Netflix, boom, because people were receiving and enjoying that media, right? So, no, absolutely, the connection is always key. It's what I think moves us in our uniquely human way is how we connect with each other. And when we don't have that, that's when we know we are unhealthy. That's when we know, when we're unhealthy individually and unhealthy as a collective.
I have one comment. When I was listening to you, I heard the Spirit speaking and said that in the book of Job, there's a scripture that talks about how a tree it can be dead. The roots can be dead. But then the scripture goes on to say, but at the center of water, a tree can grow and it can sprout. And so that being said, the words to me are like water. And so because I'm a big fan of Dr. King, and a lot of things he said right before his death, he said that this generation, especially I'm 52, and I'm seeing a lot of that resonate with me more than ever, is dealing with a degenerated sense of nobodiness. Your poems, it's the antithesis of that, where it instills a sense of somebodiness in people. And when you do that, then you get to the acronym, which I heard a long time ago, which is joy. It could be Jesus, it could be the journey, then it's others, and then you. Right? And so that's where really joy comes. And you have a sense of otherness. And I see that. So
for me,
I just want to commend you for
thank you. For me, Jesus is at the center of our work. There's plenty of people who don't source that power, they don't pay homage to Christ, but for me, that is my center. I was raised in a Christian home, and I know, so that's the life that I'm trying to. I realized that word is life. That word was used to create the universe from the perspective of Christianity, and so I realized the power that we hold in our words. And during the pandemic, coming into the pandemic, I wrote a poem that was a part of my hashtag challenge. The challenge was "My Tongue Is," and that was the hashtag that I used to get people to write. People as far as Australia wrote response and created. It was digital posters, so it was like a 1-sentence poem or a 4 to 5 sentence poem at max. Some people wrote longer ones, but it was like knowing that life and death, the power of that is in our tongues. And people always want to start with death, but he said life. Life is in our tongue, and we have to give life to ourselves and others.
I want to ask about your relationship with Prince. What role does he play in your artistry?
Man, so Prince, the fact that he was an architect, like, and he was a rebel, and he was one of the first people we saw truly advocating for artists, because some of these laws and rules were coming into being where people were talking about what is to have ownership of your music, to be not just a writer, but also being a producer, also being a publisher. That's the word I was trying to get to. Having publishing rights of your stuff, and writing, the word slave on it, and doing this. And I remember when he came on Arsenio Hall and did that, it was like, so just knowing that for songs like Purple Rain, he played all the instruments, he wrote all the parts, he sang all the parts, played all, doing all of it himself. And I mean, it's a little crazy, right? But I understand, because being in the industry, which most of us are not in the industry, how they will drive you mad. They drove a lot of people mad by trying to take their power away. I mean, God bless, we saw what happened with Lauryn Hill, and how people, treated her, and how she had to go into her own space to preserve her sanity. I got a chance to meet her. So my relationship with Prince is just standing in awe of all that he did to create his home. I mean, he had a movie, he had the whole album that was centered around the movie. Like, he was an artist on every front. And he's like, I'm gonna play the part myself. He was always like, I'm gonna be that main character. I'm gonna sing this, I'm gonna play this. He just did it all.
Did you miss him when he went to San Antonio? That's the first time I saw him live.
I
When he
did.
went to San Antonio, I was there. But as a pre-pub author, often I'm so glad that you brought it up, because it was so empowering. Because sometimes it's so difficult, even though I'm part of a lot of writing groups and stuff like that, is to get beyond the gatekeepers. And I'm so glad that you said, because now we're starting to see platforms, because as you alluded to, God made us to be creatives. And so now you hear this, but that was God's original intent. He was the creator. Right, he said, I created this, I created that. So he wanted us to be creators, because he is a creator. And so, but it's still somewhat of a challenge. So I was happy to hear some of the things that you're saying, because it has to be this, as you were saying, it has to be this mode, it has to be that. But I'm so glad that we're getting our power back. And we're saying, no, it can be the way I want it to be. And I think ultimately your challenge will make room for you, is what the scripture says.
It does, That was a scripture that my mom really fed me a lot. He was like, your gift is going to make the room for you. And it has, like, a lot of the show, I've been as far as Abu Dhabi performing, and also here in the US, but the one thing I pursue grant money, but I don't pursue gigs. They come to me, people write me, they text me, they ask me, and this is not a flex, but I'm saying, like,
when you're walking in your work,
people will come. They will
work happens.
It's like, you build it, they will come. Yeah, it's the same thing. I build up what God, we have to build up what God gave us, be a good steward, and everything. To go back to Christianity, this is the last thing I'll say, is like, every time people would ask Jesus a question, he always answered in a parable. And most of his parables were about sowing and reaping, harvesting, because everything is seed time and harvest, just like the book of Ecclesiastes. There's a time for everything. That's why I did the seasoned woman, because I was realizing what season, what time I'm in. As human beings, we have to know what season we are in, because if we are not sober-minded about the season we are in, we will be deceived and led astray, and we will waste time. And time is your most valuable commodity. It is your most valuable currency. When you give people your time and your attention, you are giving them all you have. You don't even have to have money, but if you have your time, that is your value, and people know that. And that's why they have TikTok and all these things that get you to sit there and waste your time. It's good to see those things, get inspired, but then put your phone down and get up and go create something of your own.
Yes.
Or use that platform to create something of your own. But definitely create.
That's the word. All right, that's the word. You should all be inspired. Go create something. Thank you so much. Vocab Sanderson for being with us. Please buy books, shop the store,
Or just talk to me.
buy copies of this incredible book and get it autographed.
It's $15 if you want it. If you don't want to buy it today, it is available online through my publisher, through Amazon.com, Target.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You can order it online if you can't get it today, or you can come back another day and get it. If you don't, just come talk to me. I don't care if you buy my book, just talk to me.
Awesome. And support Black Pearl Books. We love Black Pearl Books. Thank you so much. We will stick around for a little bit. Please get a treat if we didn't get one already. Grab a brochure and we want you to come to ask some more questions if you had another one. But thank you so much. Macaroni and cheese. Yes, let's talk more about food.